You are listening to Off Track with Martin Dwyer and Cornelius Lysaght.
Wow, we're back. It's the Off Track podcast with Cornelius Lysaght and
Martin Dwyer.
Martin Dwyer and Cornelius Lysaght. He'll do all the talking and he'll probably do all the swearing, to be honest. Just a quick note that there is, on the odd occasion, going to be a little bit of colourful language over the next few minutes, and just bear that in mind. Well, how's your language at the moment?
I think you'll be swearing more than me.
No, don't be ridiculous.
You lose your temper more than I ever do.
I don't ever lose my temper.
Yes, you do. There's nothing better than a...
Well, talking of temper, Goodwood's coming up, and our theme this week is jockeys' relationships. And the relationship between jockeys at Goodwood, I'm guessing, can be really tested. A, because the weather tends to be pretty good, and B, because that racecourse at Goodwood is beautiful, but but examining.
It's beautiful for you stood in the stands with your Panama on and reporting on it. But I have to say, in the 20-odd years I've been riding, Goodwood has always been a melting pot for jockeys. It's that time of year, it's hectic, it's busy, it's red hot. Goodwood, for a start, is a pain in the arse to get to. Just getting there, the traffic, and then once you're there...
To be fair, once you get there, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely place, it's great. But
and obviously, for those of you who are listening around the city of Chichester, it's very easy to get to.
I don't want to offend people in Chichester.
And Brighton.
I don't want to offend people. But well,
Guildford, it's dead easy.
But the traffic, everything else, this is why it's better going in by helicopter, but we can't all afford that like you.
Well, do you see many helicopters?
Yeah, I mean, for that, yeah. It's the best way to get in, and over the years, not so much now because jockeys are not doing 2 meetings, but there's plenty of times where we've had choppers in, and if you notice the loop at the top by the 1.5 mile start, there's always helicopters parked up there, and quite often we've come in and landed in helicopters.
Have you gone to Goodwood by helicopter when you're big Mr. Big Bollocks?
Shut up, he's not bad. Yeah, I'll never forget that. Kieran Fallon told the pilot to land at the winning post. Because runners were down at the start, so you're not allowed to land, and we wanted to get in and get ready for the next race. And Kieran, you know yourself, can be quite persuasive. He persuaded this pilot.
Was it a bit of colourful language?
He persuaded him to land at the winning post, which is not very wide, and all the people in the stands. And this poor guy nearly lost his life.
So where do you come from?
I don't think this wasn't the.
Wasn't glorious Goodwood.
No, it wasn't glorious Goodwood. It was a Goodwood evening, and we'd probably come from Ascot somewhere in the day. But it's hectic getting in there. But yeah, the helicopter's always the best way in.
I'm loving the thought though of this. So you arrive and you can see the thing and the big stand and the course laid out in front of you, and the pilot's saying we're going to have to wait. And Fallon,
we were circling, and he's speaking. We can hear, and the pilot's speaking to the control tower of Goodwood, which is just down the road. And they're advising him you can't land on the course while the runners are out, and so we're circling, and Kieran's like, you know what he's like, he just whispers, come on now, you can land down there, look, by the winning post. So, and your man's going, I can't land down there by all them people. He's like, no, that's what we always do. And he's like, really? And he's like, am I doing a good impersonation of the assassin?
He's Irish, isn't he?
He's, yeah, Welsh-Irish.
But he'd obviously been in Denmark for a couple of weeks beforehand.
Well, anyway, he persuaded him, and we landed, and the poor guy got into all kinds of trouble, but it was great.
And what about the stewards? Must have taken the view as well, didn't they?
Well, that's another thing, isn't it? The stewards at Goodwood, I mean, there's always a lot of interference at Goodwood. I mean, the racing's so competitive, so tight, big festival, but there's always falling outs and fights in the way. There's more fights in the weighing room at Goodwood than any other time of the year.
Honestly?
Yeah. There's some of the best fights we've had, the best scraps in the weighing room. It doesn't happen.
Any you can, well, in fact, please do relate some.
Well, I don't know. Well, I can't mention names, can we? But
no.
I have to say, I've got a 100% record.
Which is?
Beaten and all.
I thought you always making out, I'm from the back streets of Liverpool. I grew up as a hard man. I remember you saying to me once when Kieran...
So this is a lie.
When Kieran Fallon, because his reputation is being tough, obviously, a hard man jockey, I said, have you ever clashed with Kieran? You said to me, he wouldn't dare. You said once upon a time. I put that to Kieran and he just laughed.
No, yeah, well, he wouldn't. No, you toss it out. Never portrayed myself as anything other than...
Have you ever been involved in a scrap at Goodwood?
Not really. I had a run-in with Kieran. So what you're talking about was when I was at the stage I'd come out of my apprenticeship. I started to do well. I started to ride in big races, and that's when you find what you're made of. I was riding the big races against the top jockeys, Pat Edery, Mick Canaan, and Kieran Fallon was the king at the time, and I was this young lad just starting out, and I was right, and so the Glorious Goodwood, the festival, is every day you're competing against each other, and it's pretty tough out there. No quarters given, none's asked for. But Kieran, you know, he had a bit of a reputation, and he used to bully his way through races, and he would whistle, and he would kind of, and I know, I rode against jockeys twice my age that would move out of the way for Kieran because they were scared of him, and he had that side to his game, which was, you know, I'd respect him for it, a bit like football players. That bit like Roy Keane, he was imposing, and players would think twice, and jockeys did. So when I was coming up as a young lad, just riding these big races, he tried to do that with me and just, you know, stamp his authority and pass.
And he was King Kieran. He was known as King Kieran.
He was, yeah, and he bullied his way. You know, he didn't break the rules. He just imposed himself.
So bullying. So is that bullying during the race or bullying after the race, or?
No, always during. Kieran wasn't a bully. People respected him, and he was a bit of a tough man. But he never ever. He was the one person who always looked after young lads in the.
So I'm just trying to think. If you talk about bullying in the playground, I know what that means. If you're talking about bullying on a football pitch, I can guess what that means. Was I bullied at school? I clearly wasn't a bully, was I? But but during, how do you bully someone during a race?
Well, because you try and force your way into a gap, you move them out of a gap, you try and take someone's position, and often, as was the case then, they'd look and go, "Oh, it's Kieran," and they just give him a little bit more of an inch and give him room, and like I say, he was doing that a little bit with me, and Pat Edry said to me, he said, "Don't let him bully you, or you'll never." He said, "You stand up to him now, or you never will." And one Glorious Goodwood, I did for the whole week, and we had a run-in, and there was a case where he was on a favourite. I made the run-in, and we came off the top turn, and then the bend into the straight. He kind of undertook me, which, you know, he undertook me. He kind of went off track to come back in, and then he shouted at me, "Effing move out the way," when the rail. So me and him raced to this point of the rail, because I wasn't letting him back in, because, you know, it was a illegal move, but it worked for him in the past. And he collided with the rail and lost an iron and nearly fell off. And then obviously there was uproar. I think it was John McCrick at the time, God rest his soul. He was saying I should have been thrown out and banned for months. And but pulling up, Fallon had a go at me, effing this and that. I'm going to do this and that, and I'm going, oh, fucking whatever, not bad, you know. And then somebody said to me, I think it was Michael Hills, "What you doing? You know, be careful." He said, "He'll smack you in the mouth." I said, "So what? I'll smack him back." And we went in, and he had a go at me, words exchange. Next race, he flattened me, then I flattened him. And I think it was day 2, Andrew Baldwin said to me, I was riding for him at the time, he said, "You've got to stop this nonsense, you and Kieran." He said, "You're out there riding these expensive racehorses, and you're riding them like bumper cars." And I said to Andrew, and he was really annoyed with me, I thought he was going to sack me. And I said to him, "What would you rather? I just let myself be bullied, and I'll always get beaten in these big races, or stand up to, you know, these lads?" And he went, "Oh, well, you've got to sort yourselves out." And funny enough, by the end of Goodwood week, after we both got suspensions, and I felt like I earned.
Oh, so the stewards did take a view on that?
Oh yeah, I got a suspension, and then I bumped in another race. He got suspended, I got suspended, and then the whole of Goodwood week, and I was like, Jesus, what am I going to do? And then the last day, I swear to God, I'll never forget it. It was a 1.25 mile handicap. It's rough and ready. Them first turns, a nightmare. And Fallon was drawn one. It was Eddie Ahern in the middle, and Fallon looked across, and he said to me, "Watch yourself here." I went, "Oh," and I said, "Don't give a fuck. What do you mean, watch yourself? So what?" And he went, No. He said, "I'm going to do him." And Eddie's head was like that, going, "What? What?" I went, "Okay, fair enough." I said, I'm dropping, mine has to drop in. And he went, yeah, I'm going to flatten him. So, and Eddie just like, and he was like, what? And Eddie was on the favourite. And he just intimidated Eddie enough, put him off his game enough, that Eddie kind of didn't get a good enough position in the race early on that he should have done. And then it was kind of like, Fallon was like, I'd earned his respect, and we made peace. And we moved on, and he respected me.
And you're mates now, aren't
you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were, you know, it just, you know, he was just, like I say, he wasn't breaking any rules. He would intimidate people. And the people that stood up for themselves, like Pat Edry, Mick Cannan, and I had to learn to do the same. But a lot of jockeys moved out of his way, and that's just the way it was. And surely it's the same in lots of sports, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. I was just thinking, what was the, not Goodwood, but Royal Ascot? What was the Royal Ascot? Did you ride a double on the first day of Royal Ascot one year?
Oh, yeah, I did, yeah.
And I remember you being on, I was working for Radio 5 Live at the time, and I think you came on the radio the next morning, and I said, "Gosh, you had a double yesterday. and Mick Kinnan, who was king at the time. He had a double yesterday. I remember you saying down the phone, Mick who?
Yeah.
And that was very much at the time you were just emerging as well.
Trying to say I was cocky.
but it's all about. So it sounds as though Fallon and other jockeys and yourself as well. You've got your skills in the saddle, but there are mind games involved in racing as well.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I mean, and you have to be confident, and you know you can't be bullied by anyone, and you have to. You're making decisions, split-second decisions that can affect the outcome of the whole race. And if you have not got the respect of the jockeys you're riding against, then you're on the back foot straight away. So you need to be confident in your own ability, and you need to make your decisions quickly. And you go. I think every jockey or every sportsman has to go through that process of finding the feet, learning the job, and then being able to conduct themselves and respect. And people might take it the wrong way and say, "Oh, being bullied and this and the other," but it's not. It's kind of like finding your place. But it's always seemed like Goodwood was always a melting pot.
And you were talking about stewards at Goodwood. A friend of mine became a steward at Goodwood, and I won't name the people involved, but he arrived this first day at Goodwood. I don't think it would have been at the glorious Goodwood meeting. It would have been one of the other meetings. But everyone said quite an honour to get the call up at Goodwood, because you need to be on the ball there. So they obviously rate you a little bit. And he arrived there, and he got there quite early, and he's outside the weighing room, and there's a couple of benches, aren't there, outside the weighing room. The whole thing about Goodwood, as well as the scenery, etc. But everything has got a bit of. It's just everything's nice, isn't it? Including that weighing room that's all very sort of. It's almost like somebody's sort of terrace outside the house or whatever. And
you got a terrace like outside your house.
Well, no, but it's a nice terracey. What you think of a nice.
Bit more
terrace.
Relaxed and.
Yeah, and so there were these two jockeys sitting on the bench, and I won't try and imitate either of them because it might give away who they are. Because my imitations are so good. But these two jockeys were sitting there, and my friend, who's there early because he thinks he ought to be on his first day, no one knows him. He's just standing there, sort of bit of a spare part, wondering when the other stewards are coming. And he hears one of these two jockeys say to the other, "Hey, whatever his name was, do you fancy coming on holiday next week?" And the other one said, "Well, I can't really afford to come on holiday." "Oh, don't worry, I'll sort you out." So race 3. I'll tell you what, I'll interfere with you, and you have a go back at me, and we'll get a bit of a holiday, and we can go off to the Mediterranean together for a few days off. Anyway, my friend reported this to the other stewards, so they decided to ruin the holiday plans. They saw the incident, and they did one, but they didn't do the other. But the stewards' room at Goodwood must be as busy as any steward's room, whatever during the year.
There's always a lot of suspensions.
Steward secretaries go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards.
It's never ending. It's because of the nature of the track and how competitive it is, and like I say, everybody's tempers are flaring. It's the middle of the season, everyone's been on the go, and everybody's really, really ready for it. But we used to do a sweepstakes. We used to throw a £5 in each.
Go on.
We had a board in we haven't done it for years, but we used to have a board in the tea room. And every day we'd put how many days we're giving out. So everyone would throw £5 in each, and you guess where you think it'd be 28 days, and they'd all be totted up over the week. And so that was good fun. We used to do that. And
was there quite a lot of money in the pot?
There was a lot, because a lot of the staff worked at the team men and the valets, and people would come in and out, and put me down for how many days, and then it would always come to the last day, which is always an apprentice race. So you're always guaranteed there'd be like a couple of suspensions given out there, so you're good for about 8 days there. But it was that became as competitive as the racing. It was good fun. It was. The stewards used to come in for a cup of tea, and then they'd see the board.
They'd look at the board.
They pretend they weren't, but they'd come in and have a little laugh about it. But it does. There's a lot of suspensions.
At least that's the thing of the past. Obviously, these days these things are much more serious.
Do you think? Or boring?
Well, not boring. Maybe everyone's riding better.
Well, I don't know.
You are listening to Off Track with Martin Dwyer and Cornelius Lysaght.
What about some of the steward secretaries now? And I'm thinking, in fact, 2 in particular, Steve Drown and Fergus Sweeney, who not just are ex-jockeys you rode against, but are good mates as well.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird thing, isn't it? You go, but I've been into inquiries with them, and you literally, you have to, control yourself and not laugh, and they've got a job to do, so they get on with it. But it is quite bizarre. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
senior
Fergus told me
mates.
that he had a drink with you in.
He's gutted he hasn't suspended me yet. He wants to give me a suspension.
But you were suspended on one occasion. You were having a beer with him, and he was claiming or you were claiming he should pay because it was he and his colleagues that allowed you the time to have the beer. But what? So you just have to sort of be professional.
Yeah, just to be.
So what about them? You know, again, say Steve Drown and Fergus Sweeney when they were jockeys against you, and you were all in there in an inquiry. Do you start? Are you like at the time of recording? It's about the time all these Conservatives are trying to become the next Prime Minister, and they're all bickering amongst each other and backbiting. Do you have to sort of put it to one side and have a go at each other?
Absolutely. I have had stand-up rows with some of my best friends straight after a race, effing this and effing like.
Well, in the stewards' room.
Well, outside the stewards' room.
In the stewards' room, presumably.
Outside, because there isn't many sports where you compete against each other. And there's so much at risk. You know, it's broadcast on TV. It's a lot riding on it. And then you actually come in and get changed in the same room. That doesn't happen anywhere else, does it? Imagine footballers arguing, fighting, and then they come in to the changing rooms together. So it's amazing it doesn't boil over more. But you do. You end up, and if you didn't argue and you didn't fight, you wouldn't care enough about what you're doing, about your job, would you?
Yeah.
So it means a lot. But what about the press room? Have you had any fights in the press room over a cucumber sandwich or anything?
Not over cucumber sandwich. Though, funnily enough,
I bet you Claire Baldwin kicked the shit out of you one day or something.
No, I poured a glass of red wine over her accidentally just before the Arc one year, and I think she was making her debut on BBC television.
Oh, well
so
done.
We're in the mid to late 1990s, and somebody knocked my hand and I poured red wine over. All I can say is she took it extraordinarily well. Because I'd have been bloody furious if someone had done it to me, and I was only going to be on the radio that day. And it wasn't deliberate. There's the odd.
Spat.
I'm just trying to think. There's the odd spat. The Goodwood. There's been a bit of upset at This sounds really, really awful. Because actually we're lucky to be allowed to go to the races in order to do our work. But for years and years, the media centre at Goodwood was this most magnificent, tall-ceilinged room I suppose it was probably on the first floor of the stand. Big, lots of room. Then when Qatar got involved with sponsoring all the races there...
They took it off you?
Well, they clearly, they went and had a look round beforehand, and they said, hey, Goodwood, you know that we're giving you £10 million per race, or whatever it is. They're investing lots of money. And they said... that room over there, what do you use that for? And they said, oh, it's a long-standing media centre. And the Qataris said, well, actually, I think we might quite like that, you know. So
I bet you moaned about that.
Well, I didn't, because I make a point of not. However, the first year they constructed a new media centre above the main gents on the ground floor inside the stand, and everyone said they felt ill the following week because the fumes are coming up from the...
that's disgusting.
Yeah, but that was absolute nonsense.
Who's the biggest moaner in the press room?
Biggest moaner? Because you're the biggest moaner amongst the jockeys, is that right?
Don't switch it. I've asked you.
No, the biggest moaner amongst the jockeys, amongst the media people. I'm not sure that there really aren't. There are plenty of people. I think there's a certain amount of entitled in the media, not just racing media. The media as a whole, I think, does probably rate itself as pretty important in whichever sphere it's in, whether it's sport or politics or industry or whatever. And I think the racing media is probably no less. Well, I think we'd like to think that we're a pretty important part of the whole thing. And then so quite a lot of people come in, and I was probably the same, and think, I should be given a better desk, or we shouldn't have a slightly stale sandwich, or the coffee should be stronger, or something like that. But after a bit you realise that actually that entitled attitude doesn't
coffee should
really
be stronger. More brandy in the coffee.
More brandy in it.
That would explain some of the articles you've written.
The best. I'm not going to let you get away with that. Ridiculous. I'm going to let to use a cricket analogy. That goes straight through to the keeper. That's a ridiculous line. I've used quite a lot myself actually over the years. But no. There's a hard core of people. Now, when I first started, there were senior people like Lord Oaksey and Peter O'Sullivan, and when people, the names of yesteryear, Peter Scott, who was on the Telegraph, Michael Seeley, who was on the Times, lots of other. The Mail had endless correspondence Before Colin Mackenzie, and Jim Stanford was a guy who was on the Mail. But when I started, you used to think, used to be quite sort of obviously quite respectful of them, and if they then spoke to you, the excitement. I remember Chris Poole, who was a big fella with a booming voice, who wrote for the London Evening Standard. First time he addressed me, I was almost just too excited for words. It was actually because I was on his telephone at Cheltenham. And then gradually you don't half start feeling old when suddenly you realise that you are part of the generation that once was the Peter O'Sullivans and the John Oakeses and all that sort of thing.
I think I feel in a waiting room.
I was going to say exactly.
Some of the apprentices,
exactly
look about 12.
So you were telling that Kieran Fallon story, trying to intimidate apprentices. Now is MJ Dwyer occasionally trying to
no, because
intimidate the
you've
younger?
seen the size of them now. They're all 6 foot something. You go in, apprentice knocks you down, you think, I'll have words when I get in. You walk in, you see him across the room, you go, I'll leave it, unless someone else do that. Actually, I think the first time you interviewed me for something was Goodwood, wasn't it?
Well, I remember, John, it was when the Jockey Club, as opposed before the British Horse Racing Authority, and for our younger listeners, the Jockey Club, which now just owns racecourses and runs those racecourses and is very influential. But up until, I'm not sure of the exact year, just after the turn of the century, was it? The Jockey Club had run racing since the mid-18th century. And John Maxey, who's a media figure, also well known in Newmarket, rides out regularly in Newmarket, and he's a filmmaker as well now. He's making a film with Andrew Balding and
he's part of that,
Kingsclear. But he came up to me at Goodwood and he said, we're looking for an apprentice jockey. It might have even, they were sort of trialling what televised stewards' inquiries would look like. So they said, you don't know an apprentice, do you, that might be able to string a sentence together? I said, well, none of them are here today. I said that Martin Dwyer over there, he might be okay. I probably did say that, actually, to be honest.
And did I string a sentence?
And, well, I think about an hour later, when they were still, you'd hardly got into your stride. Even then, you were talking all the time. But we talked about this.
That's a bit rich, isn't it?
Well, you did a lot of talking.
You haven't stopped on this podcast.
Well,
I've got 3 words in.
I've only not stopped when you haven't.
I was going to buy you a pint so you'd stop talking.
Were you? Oh, right. Well, we are in the Drapers pub, so just around the corner from.
Is this going to be the theme of our podcast, in pubs?
Pubs. Do you think we could persuade the producers to just always go to a pub?
Trouble is, our producer's a bit. What's his nickname? Tight ship Terence.
Tight ship Terence, because I run a tight ship.
I run a tight ship, lads. Run a tight ship.
Yeah. Well, look, he runs such a tight ship that we'd better get on, as he'll shout at us.
Yeah. Back to script.
You are listening to Off Track with Martin Dwyer and Cornelius Lysaght.
What about so we've established in the weighing room you're the biggest moaner, and some people think you're moderately amusing for some reason. Who are they? I love it when you get jockeys not talking about their mount in the 315, but about, you'll never guess the type of clothes that X wears or Y. So who's best dressed? Is Frankie best dressed?
There's a couple: Sharp, Buick, Frank, James Doyle. I mean, he looks like he's walked out of Love Island, doesn't he? Well, I suppose they wear bikinis, don't they? But he's a smart dresser,
guys don't.
Snappy dresser.
Yeah.
He told me he was asked to go on Love Island. I don't know if that's true.
Who?
James Doyle, yeah. I must ask him about that. He said it, and then I forgot to. Yeah. So he's a snappy dresser. Frankie, obviously, is Frankie.
What about Andrea?
And he's class, Andrea.
Yeah.
He's an Evertonian as well.
Is he?
I converted him to an Evertonian. He doesn't know much. He doesn't understand football, but he. Well, don't you remember the great line?
Oh God, tell that story. That is.
That is
God,
good story. Yeah. I converted him. He was a Chelsea fan. After a few nights staying
and Spencer as well, didn't he? Wasn't he involved in the conversion?
Now. Yeah, so I converted both of them into good Evertonians. And we were playing on a Saturday. We were riding at Newmarket. I had the radio on, listening and to the match. And then I shouted, Andrea. I said, Andrea, we've scored. We're winning 1-0. He went, oh, great. I said, Calvert-Lewin scored. He went, oh, fantastic. So he went in the next room to tell Franny Norton, who's a big red.
Yeah.
Hey, Franny, Everton are winning.
He calls them Everton.
Everton are winning. He went, oh yeah. He said, Carl Llewellyn just scored.
Carl Llewellyn.
Yeah. And then, so it didn't quite work for him, bless him. But yeah, he's a legend.
And then what? Didn't the story go on that we scored? Everton scored again, and isn't he meant to have said, Franny, we scored again? And isn't Franny meant to have said, who scored this one? Richard Dunwoody.
Hey, what about that lunch we had in Chelsea one afternoon? And I was sat next to Marcus Townsend
of the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
And it was the day that Andros Townsend...
We'd signed Andros Townsend,
yeah.
and I was having a moan, but got the names mixed up. Yeah. And I'm sat next to him.
He was so annoyed about Andros being signed that he said, you'll never believe what's happened. They've signed Marcus bloody Townsend.
I kept saying, didn't I? What have we done to deserve
Marcus Townsend sitting there thinking, this is all a bit curious.
That was embarrassing. I must have said it about 4 times. I just got his name mixed up, and he was like, I remember Andrew Bolton opposite me looking at me like, what's wrong with you?
So who else would be good on Love Island?
Well, Doyle and Buick, they're pretty snappy dressers.
Yeah, but on Love Island, they're not. They'd be the. What are you? You're cool you're the cool guy, aren't you? In Love Island.
We have to. Yeah, I suppose.
Who'd suit that?
Kevin Stott. He's a bit of a Love Island contestant. I tell you what, there's some really strong characters. Adam Kirby's a legend. He's funny. He is just hilarious.
Because from a media point of view, he's not necessarily a media favourite because he likes to let the horses do the talking.
He's quite shy. He's quite shy, but he's great fun when you get to.
You are listening to Off Track with Martin Dwyer and Cornelius Lysaght.
The world's moved. We are like 2 hour men, aren't we? Just moaning.
Who'd be the who'd be the intellectual? So say we were doing a university challenge.
Yeah.
Jockey's university challenge. Who would you put on the?
Ryan Moore. We call him the barometer because if you need to know anything, you have to run it by Ryan. He is literally the. He's the very. I remember Andrea said to him one day. Andrea went, "Oh, did you watch Love Island last night, Ryan?" He went, "No, Andrea. I was watching Newsnight." He went, "Oh, what's Newsnight?" He's the serious side of things, and
I'll tell you what, we're going to form 2 university challenge teams here of jockeys and media people. So
I will beat you, I bet you.
You put Ryan in. Who else goes in? Jockeys more.
Jockeys more. Beep.
Yeah.
Wrong answer.
Starter for 10, no conferring.
Yeah, I'll be on it. Just for a bit of maybe some sports. Who else would we have on?
I think I'm cleverer than I am, so I'd put me on the media one as well.
Who else would be?
Dave Yates.
Claire would be on your team.
Claire Balding.
Do you remember
she's been on the University Challenge anyway, I think.
I shouldn't. She'll kill me for saying this. Do you remember she did that quiz in Kingsclear and she cheated and got it wrong? There was a football question and she texted...
Oh, was it about Alex Ferguson?
She texted Alex Ferguson. I'm thinking that's you, is that correct? And he texted back, yeah, that was me. And it was wrong. It wasn't him.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That's absolutely right. But don't imply that Miss Balding would ever not abide by the rules when it comes to a quiz.
It was a pub quiz, bit of fun.
And she is seriously competitive. So I'd want Claire on my team, the media team. I'd want me. I'd want Dave
We should make
Yates.
this happen, a Christmas special.
Yeah. So who are we need some more from your side. I've got 3 so far. So I'm just trying to think of the 4th. You go on. You come up with someone else.
Yeah, I might need the pop music and stuff like that. I'll need one of the.
So who do you put in for that?
To younger ones, maybe Andrea.
Really?
Spencer's good. Spencer's pretty knowledgeable about stuff. We should be able to have an extra jockey.
Why?
Because none of us went to Eton.
Well, yeah, but none of the Eton is completely irrelevant.
Well, where did you go to school?
I went to Eton, but others didn't. So don't. And there are plenty of people who think that Eton's a disadvantage. But anyway, let's not go down that route. So I'm going to put up my team as me, Yates, Claire, and I think I'll tell you, Francesca.
Kamani?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah, no,
okay.
I think she'd be good. So yours is going to be...
Would you not handle the fashion questions?
No, I think we'll leave that to Francesca. So, and your team is going to be you, Ryan...
Andrea,
and...
Spencer.
Yeah, right.
Should we make that happen?
Oh. Who's going to be who'd be quizmaster?
Tight Ship Terence.
Tight Ship Terence, our producer. We haven't got that much longer. So you're wearing your Everton shorts for the recording.
Yeah, it was red hot, isn't it?
What last time we met, we were on the brink, weren't we?
Yeah.
But we survived.
New season. We've made one signing.
Yeah, and we've got.
I can't pronounce his name. The lad from Burnley.
No, I can't say that. But I saw in those are on the American tour are saying he's going to make a massive. Massive
I've heard he's a.
And plenty of dosh from Richarlison.
Yeah, we needed that. We needed the money, financial fair play.
Tom Scudamore, jump jockey. What? He said to me the other day, "What do you think?" Because he's a blue.
Is he? I never knew that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. He might be on the.
We
might have to mix your University Challenge teams.
We might.
But he said, "What are we going to do?" We were walking off to do a talk in a tent at the Worcester races the other day.
You'd go anywhere for a few quid, wouldn't you?
And he turned to me and he said, "So what are we going to do with the cash?" And I said, "Which cash is this?" "Well, Richarlison." And I thought I was thinking about them trying to mark the card in the tent we were going to. But no, he's a proper. He just got married, Tom, remarried as well, Tom. So and he's proper blue. So
I didn't know he was a blue.
No, so Richarlison, there's plenty of dosh there. And let's just hope. I did say to it's a guy called John Neild who owns a few jockeys.
Oh yeah.
Who's big red. He said, "Do you know? I'm secretly. I'm very pleased you stayed up because and of course the Reds are secretly.
His sons are blue though.
Yeah, I know. But he says that the family is sort of
dysfunctional by the sounds of it.
Bestrides the divide. But I said, I think Frank Lampard, can become Super Frank. He can become as big a legend on Merseyside as lots of people.
He gets it.
He might be from the south of England or wherever he comes from, London area, I think. But he could become an honorary Scouser quite quickly, couldn't he?
Yeah, I think he gets it. He gets the club.
And those Reds, they quite admire him because they didn't want Everton to go down because that would have ruined the derby. It would ruin football on Merseyside.
Yeah, we were too big a club to go down. Too grand a club. You're going to the West Ham game, aren't you?
I'm going to go to that game. Yeah. Do you remember we went there last season?
Yeah.
And we said we'll take a draw. And we were 3-0 down after 5 minutes. It was desperate. But you're wearing your Everton shorts because that fits in with your recuperation. You've got your crutches here as well. So how's that all going?
It's slowly going in the right direction. Doing loads of work and rehab. The things they got me doing are unbelievable in Oaksey House. I don't know what I'd do without Oaksey House. Jesus Christ, I don't think I'd walk again if it wasn't for them.
Haven't you got some kind of one of your people helping you as a Red?
Oh yeah,
he's a Liverpool fan.
The conditioning coach, I hate him. I love him, but I hate him. I mean, when I'm booked in to see him, he puts his Liverpool shorts on, which I've made a complaint. I made an official complaint to the Jockeys.
Even though you walk in with your Everton shorts on.
Yeah, but he's paid by them, and he gets given a uniform, Jockeys, really nice shorts and stuff, and he puts a Liverpool shorts on.
And does he put you really through your paces?
He makes me do more than I should do, and he starts talking to me about football, so I forget how many reps I've done and whatever I'm doing. So yeah, he's hard work. He's pushing me beyond the pale, but I suppose it's only.
But is it making progress?
It's making progress. Yeah, I'm 2 months since the operation. I'm getting fed up of people keep asking me you're still on crutches. When are you going to be back? I'm like, it's like asking a pregnant woman after 3 months, where's the baby? It's just going to take time. But I'm listening to all the right advice. For once in my life, I'm listening to the experts and I'm doing everything right. So. It's just going to take time. It's a bit frustrating, especially when the weather's like this and good racing so that's
Goodwood just around the corner.
Yeah, Goodwood round the corner. Should be there fighting in the waiting room.
No, well, you wouldn't be doing that, obviously. And I noticed when we just walked up the steps into the area where we're recording, you said, "Catch me if I fall down." You weren't very impressed with my response. Was yeah.
Yeah,
but you didn't wobble. You moved up pretty well. I thought.
That's because I had a pint. Yeah.
But the other day you were telling me the stairs were not many weeks ago. The stairs were a real challenge.
Yeah. So it is small improvements. Even just like I can stand at the sink and brush my teeth now with no crutches. That's a massive improvement. I know it's mental, isn't it? But
and
so
just remind me what the surgeon said to you when he looked at who rebuilt the knee.
He said it was worse than he thought. He's used to treating athletes. I'm not claiming to be an athlete or anything, but it's an injury.
I've watched some of your riding.
He said he's used to footballers and tennis players, but because I fell off the back of a horse at speed, it's a bit more.
Didn't he compare it to a car crash?
Yeah, he said it was more of a high impact. He said that. With a knee like that, he said, I'd expect you to be playing for Liverpool. Shysters.
Anyway, let's not go down that route. But so is there? But there's light is beginning to gather in the tunnel.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's going to take time. So, fingers crossed, we'll be back at the end of the year to ride pile driver, hopefully. Yeah, that's all hotting up now. Who's the jockey?
Well, it's exclusive.
Merry-go-round now, isn't
It's
it? Now,
exclusive in the Daily Mirror today.
Is it?
PJ McDonald rides.
Oh, yeah,
driver
yeah.
in the King
Yeah,
George, exclusive by Newsboy, Dave Yates, and the
I was talking more about
Daily Mirror.
Frankie and all the. How many jockeys have been sacked lately? Rob Hornby lost his ride in the Irish Derby.
And then
Rode
hit back straight
yeah.
away with a couple of Group 1s,
Yeah.
or practically straight away.
So it's been.
It's all been happening. Do you keep in touch? And there are WhatsApp groups and lots of phone calls?
We've got a WhatsApp group.
Right.
Got a WhatsApp group. It's we call ourselves the Chippy Gang.
The Chippy?
Chippy Gang.
Yeah. Well,
No, actually,
I wonder why.
Yeah, we just slag each other off and just moan about stuff, but it's quite entertaining.
So
Get some
you've
good videos.
demonstrated, at the end of this broadcast, you have demonstrated you are a moaner. you're as much a
No,
moaner.
at least I can admit it. But we get to a certain age. God knows what I'm going to be like when I'm your age.
Oh, well, we'll leave it there. It's a good moment, I think, to leave it. This has been the Off Track podcast with
Martin Dwyer
and Cornelius Lysaght. Thank you very much indeed for watching and for listening. Please, if you've enjoyed it, tell whoever you can. Roll up, listen to the Off Track podcast from Dwyer and Lysaght. Please do that. And if you get the opportunity, subscribe as well, and then you will never miss an episode. In the meanwhile, have a lovely time at Goodwood, and we'll speak soon.
You've been listening to Off Track with Martin Dwyer and Cornelius Lysaght.